But the Democrat Party's greatest icon was FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, largely due to his New Deal agenda, and it transformed the United States away from constitutionalism and capitalism towards centralism and socialism. And for this reason, more has been done to immunize his reputation from his racist legacy than any other public figure, dead or alive. 1942, Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9006, the military rounding up 120,000 Japanese Americans, including 70,000 U.S. citizens. They were forcibly relocated to internment camps in remote parts of the country. 10 different military camps in the Midwest, 1 in Arkansas. They lost their homes, their property, and their liberties. In 1944, in a case called Korematsu versus United States, the Supreme Court upheld the internment order in a 6-3 decision. And Associate Justice Hugo Black, writing for the majority, he led the way to uphold that decision. Now, who is Hugo Black? Black rose through the Democratic Party ranks in Alabama. He was a lawyer for the Klan in the 1920s. He resigned from the Klan but kept in contact with them. He was elected to the United States Senate with the help of the Klan in 1926. He opposed the Wagner-Costagan anti-lynching bill and was an intensely loyal supporter of Roosevelt and the New Deal. In 1937, he was rewarded by Roosevelt as the first nominee to the Supreme Court. His overall record as justice is mixed and disputed. He was an activist for Roosevelt's economic socialism, but he also insisted on the strict interpretation of the Bill of Rights, with certain main exceptions. That said, Hugo Black Jr., Black's son, recalling the appeal of the Klan to his father, stated the Ku Klux Klan and Daddy, so far as I could tell, had one thing in common. He suspected the Catholic Church. He thought the Pope and the bishops had too much power and too much property. So Roosevelt's first nominee to the Supreme Court had been an activist with the Klan. And of course, he wrote the majority opinion upholding Roosevelt's internment of Japanese Americans. Roosevelt also established the Federal Housing Administration, the FHA, in 1934. You may have used it, you may have heard of it. Its ostensible purpose was to insure mortgages, thereby promoting home ownership. But it furthered racial segregation. Why? It denied insurance in and around black neighborhoods. Incredibly, the FHA was subsidizing builders who were mass-producing entire subdivisions for whites, with the requirement that none of the homes be sold to African Americans. Did you know that? Of course not. The term redlining comes from the development by the New Deal by the federal government of maps of every metropolitan area. And the areas where we were not supposed to give these insurance backings for the mortgage were black areas. They were called the red areas. Hence the term for redlining. Roosevelt infamously and unceremoniously slighted the great Olympian Jesse Owens. In 1936, Owens had won multiple gold medals. The Olympians from 1936 in Berlin, Hitler's Berlin, were invited to the White House with the exception of Jesse Owens. Owens was once asked if he was snubbed by Hitler. Hitler didn't snub me, he said. It was FDR who snubbed me. The president didn't even send me a telegram. Even with lynching going on, I had mentioned that Senator Hugo Black, who'd become a justice on the Supreme Court, opposed the anti-lynching bill in the early 1930s. Roosevelt said he opposed lynching. He was lobbied by his wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, to support the bill, but he refused because he put politics ahead of principle. Roosevelt would not support or sign a federal anti-lynching bill, which would have to come later. I want you to think about that, folks.